I just came back from the movie Trap, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. It was good. It was good. But there is a twist. There is a twist. Welcome to another episode of Less Than a Critique. So I literally just came back from watching the movie, the matinee show. And like initial thoughts, and I don't know how I'm gonna keep doing these videos, like I kind of like the idea of not having like a script and kind of like free flowing, kind of like an initial reaction kind of thing. I think it just develops a better structure for conversation and at least like critique film theory kind of things. So I think it's just easier that way. So, but we'll see how good and how bad I do, because my memory is not the best. But initially going into the theater, I remember thinking like, wow, this is like a good premise, even based on the trailers before, and thinking this will be really cool to see. But within the first 5 minutes, I'm already thinking like, how far is this gonna go? Like, when does it get good? I just started thinking a lot about kind of the structure of where the story is gonna go, because the premise is really good, but I think that's one of the things that he does the best, is creating really good premises but then not really delivering. It's super hard, right? It's easier to have a plethora of like really good ideas, but then the execution and where they go, it all depends on what you're doing, right? Like I have tons of really good ideas that I would want to make into a film, but would it be good? Like you have to kill your babies at some point and just realize like, okay, maybe like this doesn't have the legs that it does. So I started thinking that when I started watching this, I was like, I wonder how long and how much legs does this have? And in the first 10 minutes, like the movie pretty much gets started. Like you start seeing examples of him being in the situation and really aware that he's not in the best situation, that there's something going on, doesn't know what yet. The movie starts pretty quickly, which is great. Like it doesn't really hang on this thing where he's just stuck in this place and what does he do? It moves on pretty quickly. Like I mentioned before, the one thing that I feel like is always an issue with M. Night's movies is the execution of the premise. I think they always have a really, really good start, and he's amazing at suspense. Like the movie does keep you on your toes. For me, it was this thing where I just wanted to keep watching it because I was just curious to know like what was gonna happen. But I don't know if that's because I want to see M. Night Shyamalan execute well, or because the movie's really well done, and that's where the blurriness comes into play when it comes to his movies. I personally really like the film to the degree of it was just a really fun watch. I don't ever say I don't like films or I hate something. As a filmmaker myself, I realize the complexity and how difficult it is to execute anything. And so I'll never have like that kind of negative outlook on anything. It'll probably be not for me, but there's always something that you'll learn, at least for me. And there's always something that I'm seeing that I didn't see before, something that I can admire, something that I can acknowledge, something that I can really appreciate. So with that being said, let's get into the spoilers. You have about 2 seconds before I ruin the whole movie for you and the twist. I think for me, one of the brightest spots was Josh Hartnett, just flat down. He played such a convincing role as this weirdo serial killer, kind of OCD, really like on his serial killer game. Like he was way too good at it. But his character portrayal was really good. There are parts in the movie where he plays this overly friendly guy when he communicates with people, because he does have to interact with a lot of people in this film to kind of throw the scent off, right? But he does it in a way that's so off-putting as well. You as an audience member know from the very beginning, I think 10 minutes in, that he is the serial killer. So there is no like twist in that sense where the serial killer was somebody else or any weird thing like that. Like it's him, you're stuck with him. And that's the one thing that M. Night did a lot differently than most of his films. He's stuck with, this is the guy, we're following him through, and it's kind of this exercise in like what a serial killer can do and maybe the psychology behind it. But that's where the movie doesn't click for me that well. And that's where the movie doesn't click for me. So there's the antagonist of this film, technically, right, is a doctor played by Hayley Mills, Dr. Grant. She's if I'm not mistaken, she's like an FBI kind of serial killer, mind hunter, profile reader. So she's apprehended other serial killers. She's the one behind this trap, right? So she's kind of giving all the exposition about him through walkie-talkies, through like secret conversations, which the movie kind of really plays a lot of liberties with that. Like, there's a scene in the movie where Josh Hartnett's character like literally walks through the police having a meeting, and he's just like drinking coffee and like it's just going about it, which was really cool actually. But it's also the idea that like how he just like kind of stumbled into this. There's other parts of the movie that do kind of similar things where he just like kind of hears the exact information he needs to hear. The one cool thing though, that they didn't do that too much, he does steal a walkie-talkie, so then he's like plugged in to the police chatter. So that's really cool actually. So we have Josh Hartnett as the serial killer, he's Cooper, and his daughter. And then we have Lady Raven, who is the pop star singer of this trap, right? But come to find out that she's also involved in this trap. And that's where the movie becomes a little too like, you gotta like write your way out of these things, and the way that it seemed to fit was that she's also part of this plan, and then she becomes kind of involved in this whole thing. So the second act, he manages to get out of the arena, which I thought the whole thing was going to take place in this thing. So I was surprised by where the movie was going, but then the confusion of that also wasn't like, it wasn't satisfying. So in the second act, he's off, right? And there's this whole scene of it at his house, but Lady Raven knows that he's the serial killer and he threatened her. So there's this like kind of, you know, unspoken thing between them. And for me though, that's where the movie suffered a bit, because Josh Hartnett is such a good character and he's such a good actor in the way he played this, that he needed to play off that kind of tension. And Lady Raven, just not a good actress. She is the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan, Saleka Shyamalan. That part really suffered because of it, because there was a lot of tension between them. I didn't feel like she was actually scared of him, which, I mean, that's the whole like point of this, right? Now, the one thing I wasn't expecting though, because I thought that's where the movie was gonna end, it felt like the first act was, I mean, it was a two-parter, right? It was like him being at the stadium, him figuring this out, then him trying to get out of here. So that for me was like structured the right way. But then it goes into this third act, which is the house, or the ending, right? But it doesn't end there, which was like, for me, I felt a missed opportunity, but I don't know, I didn't really know what to think of that, because after the fact, him and his wife have a really like meaty scene at the end. It's technically the end of the movie, so it would be the crescendo of it all, which was actually really good, because the actress that plays his wife is Alison, and she's, I mean, incredible. So him playing off her in that end was really, really like amazing, just acting to see. And it was really, I think it was like really well done. So the twist, and spoiler on spoiler, is that the wife was the one that set up the trap technically for him. So it wasn't really like a Shyamalan twist as we would like know it. I don't know why I had a feeling when I was watching it that the serial killer was going to be the wife or something, and that would have been so dumb. But I think that's like the problem with his movies, right? It's like a twist for the sake of having a twist, and is that like worth it, right? It didn't happen, so glad about that. But that was really the twist of the movie in that way, where the wife was the one that knew the whole time. But she doesn't get enough screen time for that to pay off. You know, like the movie doesn't start at the home. We don't know the wife until that literally at the beginning of the third act, technically. And the ending felt also like a fourth act, because the movie kept going. Like, he escapes the house, they find him at the home, but then he runs out. So there's this like whole, I think, another 10 minutes of him like running away. The premise is really cool, right? Oh, you're stuck in a concert. There's this huge trap for this like really crazy serial killer. But that like took way too long, and that's kind of what the movie was. I mean, the movie was at least 60-70% of the movie was at the concert. So it's like, how long do we need to be there, right? Either you make the whole movie there, or you don't, right? Like, you stick with kind of like the premise, and you know, or at least when he escaped, that be the ending, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just, It really is difficult though. I can't stress this enough to make a good film. So it's not like I'm shitting on anything. It's just there was a lot of things that just didn't work. But I really did enjoy watching the movie though. Like it wasn't like I had a bad time. There was these bits and pieces of his acting where it was so incredible. There's these slight twitches in his eye, like where he's bubbling on the inside. The one cool thing that I really liked, and that's what I'm upset about, is that for the antagonist is this doctor who knows about serial killers, right? But they never face off. Like I thought that they were gonna have a face off at some point, which would have made sense, right? Like, but they never do. They never have like an actual face off until the very end. They catch him and she's like, "We gotcha." Like literally, that's it. And like, I would have loved for them to have like a sit down, you know, like a one-off thing. And him being so good at it that she wasn't even sure, or I don't know, anything but what actually happened, which was like such a waste too, because then why add her to the movie, right? Or see, that's what I mean. So you either make the wife the antagonist or make the doctor. It didn't work either way. None of them was more than the other. So it was kind of like, okay, what they tried to do was like try to kind of get into the profile and the mind of him. There's a scene where they kind of mention how he was like abused by his mother and he keeps having flashbacks of his mom during the movie. They explain it, you understand it towards the end, but in the beginning you're like seeing that he's having hallucinations, but it doesn't click or anything. And you're just like, who is this like lady that he keeps seeing in the corner? It would have been cool to kind of like dive deeper into the psychology of him, but that would have required a whole different movie, right? It would have required him not being at this venue. It would have required a lot more focus on his family, on him as like he goes about his day-to-day, maybe even the killings that he does. But that would have been a whole different movie. It wouldn't have been Shyamalan, you know what I mean? So I don't know, out of the movies that I've seen of his, this isn't the worst or anything. It's not the best, but it is fun. And I think just for Josh Hartnett alone, I would watch this movie. So I definitely would recommend to see it. It was really fun, but without its, you know, ups and downs and its kind of downsides. But besides that, that was kind of my first impression take on this film, and I hope you join me on the next one.